Hello, Chris here with another episode of the Make It podcast. And with me this week are two truly esteemed guests, the one and only Aaron Irons and Josh Croft. And I would be completely lonely and lost without my partner in podcasting, Nick Buggs. Nick, say hello.
I'm lost without you. Look at you.
No, what is that? What is that?
Don't ever go.
What is that?
It's an old school R&B track. I think I want to say it's True.
Oh, it's True.
Yeah, I think it's True.
I used to sing, my singing group back in the day used to sing a Troop song, but it was a remake. And I didn't know it was a remake all those years. And I found out that Jackson 5 sang it. And I was like, oh crap. So I have a rule in music basically, which is that if you're an Aaron, who is an awesome musician, by the way, might have some opinions on this. Any artist whose first single is a remake is a essentially doomed artist. If their very first thing, because what happens is, and I spent my life in music before film, which I say ad nauseum on this podcast.
I have heard it a couple times.
You've heard? Have you heard I was in music before this?
Maybe once or three times. I don't know. But hey, real quick, it's not True. It was BB and CC whining some trip.
Oh, you bastard.
Okay,
so anyway,
I'm sorry.
The point is you work your ass off to try to get that label deal, which takes years and years and years, most times. And so all your best stuff that made you attractive to the label tends to be your stuff. That's why they call it the sophomore slump, because now it's like, oh, I put all my stuff, which was basically therapy, by the way, especially if you're a singer-songwriter, like in that first album. That was my true therapy. And now I got money and women and clothes and whatever else you wanted, if you're that artist, self-esteem. And now you can't write anything real anymore. You're like, this label deal solved all my problems. I'm sorry. I'm happy now. And then all your fans are like, we liked you when you were depressed. You were helping me out.
So yeah, it's like Dave Matthews when he was a drug addict. That was the best music he ever made. And
that's the best Dave, but it's not good for Dave. We love Dave.
Dave can't survive
that's
that
not
way.
Good for Dave.
Well, also,
Dave can't survive that way. Yes, exactly.
I think what you're saying there with like starting out one way and then changing to something else. Boys to Men is probably the only example I can think of that started out with Motown Philly, being this really hype song, and then everything else was love and depression, which
yeah.
Fantastic. I saw them, by the way, a few months ago at Bridgestone, and it was
they're tremendous. Anytime they're in town, I watch them. I watch them at the Skimmelhorn Opera House.
Oh, that's great.
It was unbelievable because you have the entire opera playing behind all those harmonies. And there's nothing like it. I mean, it's truly remarkable. What they found out about Boys to Men is that they kept giving them up-tempo songs to sing, but they couldn't dance. Or I should say two of them couldn't dance. And it was really obvious. And it was like, oh my gosh, like bass, the bass guy, Michael, he couldn't dance.
He just kind of swayed around in the back. He had a cane.
Well, he had scoliosis.
Right.
Scoliosis, yeah.
Like he made that cane look good, though.
He did. Everybody wanted one, bro. Come on now.
I had one.
I had one too.
I had one at my senior prom. I just saw a picture of it last weekend. My mom pulled it out, and I wore a zoot suit and had a cane.
That's awesome.
Never ever underestimate the PR team. Never ever underestimate them. They know what they're doing. They can make a weakness into a strength. By the way, gentlemen, can you say hello to this audience?
Hello, audience. I'm Aaron Irons, and I'm a filmmaker, and we're here to talk about some films. And this is my producer and friend,
Josh Croft. Hi, I am. I've been the producer on Aaron's last two projects, and also an actor. So happy to be here, guys.
Happy to have you guys back. So, audience members, listeners, viewers that have been watching this podcast, listening to this podcast a long time, knows that we interviewed you guys about a year ago or so when your film Chest came out. Maybe it was 2 years ago at the Defy Film Festival. We were live.
Yeah, it was 2 to 5 ago. So
Yeah. So maybe producer Papa Bear, you could find out which episode these guys were on. But it was a live episode right at the festival. It was really awesome to be a part of it. I know you guys attended it again this year. But before we get into that, I just want to get some quick housekeeping done. We released the audio only episode of Gail Ann Hurd, legendary acclaimed producer of Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens, The Walking Dead. The list just goes on and on. Eon Flux. We released this audio only episode with her. And in the preamble, I said, this will not be on YouTube. Well, let me just clear that up. What I meant was there will be no video on YouTube.
Yep.
It is on YouTube. It is being listened to on YouTube quite a bit, actually. So shout out to Gail and Hurd, and appreciate all of her insights and being such a legend and such a boss. But I misspoke there. It was a little bit misleading. There's a misunderstanding. So I just want to clear that up in the housekeeping. Now, back to the gentleman here in front of us. So Aaron, Josh, you're back at Defy, which is really, I could describe it, but I think it'd be great if you guys describe what Defy is and why it's such a meaningful festival for people who have out of mainstream horror or just different types of films, alternative films.
Well, wait a second before you answer, man. You're talking about their movie Chest that was in Defy as well. Is that what you're talking about? I didn't realize that was a horror. I thought it was a porn. I'm sorry.
It's not the first time that mistake has been made. I'm describing that to people for a while. I was like, chest, and they're like, oh. What is that?
Exactly.
Maybe someday someone will make a
I'm in.
porn parody.
Right.
Would be a great spoof. What are they
Yeah,
finding
it
in the
would be.
chest? Who knows?
Like,
It
oh.
would be an amazing spoof. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Chest and Jeffrey's Hill, which is kind of like a sequel to Chest. It's Chest adjacent, but it is a sequel. Talk about a little bit about Defy and what keeps you guys coming back, what makes it special, and then talk to us about Chest and Jeffrey's Hill so that we can make a connection between those two films and what they're all about.
So, I mean, I'll kind of talk about Defy and let Aaron talk about the movies a little bit, because Defy is something we both have been a part of since the beginning. This was their 9th year, right?
Yeah, I think
so.
so.
9th year,
Yeah.
and so next year will be a big anniversary for them. They've always had it at Studio 615. That's, they say East Nashville, but it's, off Briley there. And those guys are great hosts. It's unlike anything else in town. The movies are weird, really, really weird in a good way. I mean, every year you think, all right, it can't get crazier, but it does. But Dicey and Billy Sneeze, Dicey Wildman is, the curators of this festival. They've been running it for a long time. They're now a nonprofit. They're 501c3.
Oh, cool.
Which allows them to, continue to do it. And, they do it over 2 days. They do it starting, and it's always, so my birthday is August 18th, and it's always on the weekend of my birthday, which is a great birthday present. But they always do it like they start on Friday around 5 or 6 in the evening. They go until like 10 that night. And then the next day starts around noon. It goes until midnight. Then they have a big after party. So they usually have, I would say, 6 or 7 features, and then a whole lot of short films and grouped into blocks. And they're all very interesting. And Defy is, the reason why they wanted to start this was kind of a festival. And you probably just need to get those guys on to talk about it. They could talk much better than I could.
Oh, we've had Dicey on. We've had her and Sarah Saturday on. Yeah.
So,
we haven't had Billy on. I gotta have Billy on.
Billy's would be an interesting.
Shout out to
guest
Billy
for
Sinise.
A lot of reason. He's made some great movies that I was actually an extra in a couple of them. So, but anyway, the Defy Festival is just it's a great crowd, and the networking in this festival can't be underrated. Like it's like almost every Nashville filmmaker, actor, all the crews, like everybody comes out, because whether there's a film that they're attached to or not, they just love coming to see all their friends, because it's, it's rare that you can get people together if everybody's schedule's free. So it's always a good hang. And
we met you guys there. So
yeah,
there you
definitely. And
That's true.
I
That is
got to
true.
say too, Chris, I went back and listened to the podcast we did at Defy a couple months ago, and I don't think I told you this there, but me and Aaron both were extremely nervous. Not for the podcast, but that Chess was premiering there. Chess was actually the first Nashville made or Tennessee made feature that had ever played at Defy. And we were also the first
I did not know that.
Yeah, and we were also the first feature that sold out before the screening. So they had to add chairs, and it helps when you have everybody that was in the movie was there and part of it, then everybody's friends, and it's a great community. But me and Aaron had wanted to get into Defy, like starting making the movie. Like that was our big goal. Like
that
we
was like
really
one of the goals.
Did anything else? Like we just want to be at Defy so we can just hang out and be like, hey, I've got a movie here, and wear that little filmmaker badge so people take you more seriously. But but yeah, I mean, I think we both were very nervous, just from a personal level about all of this, because this is something that me and him had really never done before, never been a part of before. But I got to say that having your podcast beforehand made all of that go away. So it was,
nice.
Am I right? Like it was, it definitely helped our nerves and anxiety about everything. And it was a good distraction in a way of thinking that, hey, on the other side of this wall, there's 150 people that are waiting to see us walk out of this room. I don't know if I want to do that. And,
right.
And it was a lot on Aaron, like, because Aaron had done everything, we talked about that before, how much he did on his own, the limited number of people that were involved. Aaron took on a lot of responsibilities. So it was
a ton of hats. I remember that. Yeah.
My point in that is, the timing of doing your podcast in that environment could not have been a better benefit to us. So thank you for doing that. And, when we walked out of that room, I remember looking at Aaron, I was like, all right, game face. Cause we turned that corner down the hallway and there everybody was, and it was just like, here we go. And off to the races. So it helped calm the nerves and, to talk about other things and joke around, talk about personal stuff and kind of just get all that cleansed out. So, didn't know if you intended that to happen, but that's what happened. I really do appreciate that.
Honestly, just like being so cool with Dicey and Sarah Saturday, it was one of these things where she just opens the door for us to come in and says, hey, we'll take all the support and help we can get. And, any extra publicity, any extra media that comes out of it, like come through. And we were going to come through again this year. We come through every year we can in one capacity or another. I think one year I was just like a roving microphone and I was so bad at that, it was just like a weird situation where I had like a short in my mic cable and I think everything was blown out and I couldn't use any of it. It was really sad, but it was fun to interview people and like hear them respond in their most drunk, belligerent moments. So it is a fun festival for that reason. And the only reason we couldn't come this year is because I was out of town. So I wasn't actually in town to see it. So that's why I really wanted to know how it was this year. Was it a blast this year? How was the turnout? What were some of the films that really stood out to you guys?
This year was it. I think the attendance was probably more than most that I've seen, especially the first day was just slammed. And
cool.
Usually, the first day is kind of decent, but this year was pretty big. This year they only had maybe 3 features, I think, total.
Yeah, I think there were 4.
Yeah, I think two a day, which was probably a good change, just because features are, people are more likely to watch 2 features instead of like if there's like 4 a day, like somebody's not gonna have as big an attendance there. So I think strategically they made some choices that made it really enjoyable and gave a lot more time to mingle. So you're not just coming out of something and immediately having to go back in. And this year I didn't get to see a whole lot of, I missed some of the features. I had family in town. I had to leave after after our premiere. But the horror block this year was probably one of the best I've seen. Like, it was just, people were just literally just screaming.
Yeah, it was wild.
It was packed. Like, that I've never seen that room that packed.
My favorite of all time still, Aaron, to this day is the foot fetish short.
Okay, so
what's that one called? What's that called again?
It's called Fetish.
It's called Fetish. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie is insane.
David, what's it? David Lee Heiss. I'm butchering his last name.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
His name's David. So he had a film in the horror block again this year.
Okay.
But it was divided into segments called Cooks. That was the name of his shorts. Okay. And within the block of horror shorts, like, it started off with, I think there was like 4 different segments of his shorts. So it was breaking up the horror shorts by his own shorts that could be put together. And I guess it doesn't matter. Like, I'm not trying to ruin it or anything, but I guess you had to be there at the end. But Aaron was saying, yeah, people were screaming. There was some girl in the back that was screaming from the very beginning, like anytime anything happened. So the very last short was his finale, David's finale of the Cooks shorts. And it was all revolving around people making like online videos of doing like cooking tutorials. And, you know, you see like the YouTube videos, people setting it up and like, I'm going to make some gravy today. And, you know, whatever it is. So it was different ones of that, but David played this like maniac clown looking guy that would just break into people's houses and murder them while they're making these videos. So it was capturing
murder
like
clown.
It was capturing this video like a YouTube video, like this is actually happening while these people are live doing it. Well, the very last video was him doing the same thing. And then I don't think they've ever done this before at Defy, where they have like a live interaction. But the very end of that,
they broke the fourth wall.
They broke the fourth wall. The lights flashed. There was this loud bang. And David, who is dressed in his clown murder character, comes running out with like knives and shit, and just is like running around and runs straight back to the back where that girl was screaming so loud. And I thought they were going to have to take this girl out by ambulance. And it was wild. Like, everybody loved it because, you know, with Fetish, that's how they ended the festival that year. And they did the same thing this year with this. So, you know, they love that dude. And I'm glad he keeps making stuff and coming back.
He's super talented. So, you know, one of the reasons why there isn't a lot of features, and Nick, I know you got some things you want to ask here. Yeah. This isn't a question, but just a statement to say that, like, one of the reasons why there's not a lot of features at Defy from a producer and executive producer standpoint is because the movies are so alt that you can't in great confidence put a lot of money and faith behind them to make such a long film. And so as features start to roll out there and get bigger and better, and more talented people like David start to do things like this, you're actually seeing money sort of turn and pivot towards films that aren't Emily in Paris style movies, right? Like something that pushes the audience a little bit harder and become less risky, just simply because we've grown so tired of the vanilla.
Yeah, we were actually just talking about a movie like that right before we started. We were standing outside, and I just watched. I flipped on Tubi today, and I just saw the original Terrifier short, which I didn't even know existed. Aaron is a gigantic Terrifier fan, and he was like, "What are you talking about?" So I'm like, "You got to go watch this." So I guess the story was so it's on Tubi, and Damien Leone, is that how you say his name? The director of Terrifier.
Leone or Leone, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he made this original short, Terrifier, with Art the Clown and that whole thing, and couldn't get, didn't really have a venue for it, so he just put it on YouTube, and it got all these views, and somebody recognized it, and that's how they got to make All Hallows Eve, like the first movie of the Terrifier series. And then once they agreed to do that, he had to pull that short off of YouTube. So now it's on Tubi, and it's a 20-minute short that plays back to back. One is the first one's just the short, and the second one is the short with the director commentary. So you get to hear this guy talk about, making this short and how all of this, and this was like, I guess they recorded this commentary before it really blew up. So it was just really interesting to see how those short films, because I'm kind of on the fence about how I feel about people putting a lot of money into short films, but I
Yeah,
get
we
it
are
if
too.
it works. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, like it's something that I guess the way me and Aaron make movies is so different because our budget is half of what some people spend on a 10-minute short, which is insane to me. But I get why they do it at the proof of concepts and wanting to make a feature and that line. But it's that Terrifiers is kind of one of those examples. I didn't even know that existed, but that's how they got into that world of being able to make a feature.
Yeah, sometimes shorts work out like that, where like Lights Out, that was a short, like a 3-minute short that was on the internet, and then it got bought and turned into a feature. And there was actually a film, I don't know if you were there for it. It's called Gnomes at Defy. It was like this crazy thing about this lady was just going jogging, and then these gnomes come out of the woods.
I know this one,
and it just was insane. And for a little while, that was
one of the most insane. I don't know what to make of it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, like everybody was just like, "What is happening?" It was so good, and I think it was on YouTube for like a week after that. But then a big studio was like, "Hey, we want to turn this into a feature," and they took it down off YouTube. So I'm not sure what they're doing with it. Probably developing it now. So it can work.
Hopefully, hopefully it's a little better, right? Like it stood out. It was good for what it was, but at the feature level, they're going to have to really, really bring it.
I mean, that's definitely something that when you watch shorts, I guess, after starting making movies, like when you get like attached to it in that technical way and thinking about the marketing behind it and how much work it takes to actually do a feature, one of the first questions I want answered when I see a short is, if they're trying to make a feature, could this work as a feature? Because some of them, some of them you watch, you're like, that exists as a short film only, doesn't need to be anything else than what it is. It works in that regard. And then there's, I'm sure, a million examples of they should have left it alone. They should have left it a short film and not try to make a feature.
I would say my last two shorts fall into that category of, this is it. We set out to make a short. It's not going to be anything but a short. So Skakafis, which is in the Nashville Film Festival, playing on September 20th. I don't know if this is going to drop before the 20th, but if so, go see it. Theater 1, Friday night, September 20th. And another one we haven't posted, we actually did with Dicey, called We Need to Talk About Balloons. It's like a surprise horror film. That can't be anything but a short. And it's great. I saw some rough cut of it 2 days ago. It's really awesome. But is it going to be a movie? Probably not. Like, we really designed it to be a short. Anyway, Nick, I know you got some stuff for these guys.
Yeah. Well, I was actually wondering, because we're talking about like that next level, right? Leveling up, whether it's from a short to a feature or from indie to studio. My question really is, like, what's the next step for you guys? Like, where are you trying to go with these films? I mean, it sounds like you're going to keep making movies, right? That's definitely part of it. What's the next step?
I think the weird thing that people need to know about me and Aaron is we didn't take the route of making the short film and then, going to starting in a sensible way of let's see if we can do a 10-minute short film before we do an hour and a half feature found footage movie. That never crossed our mind. Looking back at it, I'm glad it didn't, because, ignorance is bliss. But, that just was our first attempt at making a movie. I mean, we'd worked on a TV show in college that we did together, but, as far as like really making stuff, it was just, I guess I'm just thinking about it right now. That never occurred to, like, maybe we should have done a short first.
Yeah, I think about Masochist because
you punished yourself.
I've done 2 films and they're both features, but Jeffrey's Hell is to talk about that a little bit, which it premiered at Defy this year. It was a sequel that I kind of started developing while we were wrapping up on Chest, and it was done almost entirely in secret. It wasn't really my intention to keep it secret, but I wasn't sure where it was going, because I never wrote a script for it. Never really, I don't know, it just kind of fell into place. But it mostly takes place in caves, which when taking a lot of feedback from Chest, a lot of people had like people were genuinely like terrified of the cave scenes, which there's like very little cave in Chest. So I was like, okay, the next one's going to be more cave, and or like all cave.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, how could I do a sequel without like actually doing a sequel, and how could I involve all the people from like my friends that we made Chest with. So Jeffrey's Hill became like a meta sequel where I'm playing myself as the director of Chest, and I am trying to make a documentary, or like starts out as trying to do bonus features for Chest for the DVD, where I go back to East Tennessee to explore some of the legends that we touched on in Chest. And in the process of doing that, I get kind of involved with like a deeper conspiracy, and then I go missing. And the first half of Jeffrey's Hill is interviews with Josh and the cast and crew of Chest about what they knew about this project that I was working on, and what they what they didn't know, and what they thought happened to me. And the process of filming was almost organic to the nature, because I would call Josh probably knew more about it than anybody, but most people,
and it still wasn't a lot. Like I knew what was going on, but I'm like, this is Aaron. He's going to come back.
And it's crazy because I've never really heard of a film being made that way.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wasn't going to be able to make this in a traditional way, because there's no way I could do the cave scenes that I wanted to do with a full crew and actors. So I was like, I've got to do this myself.
Well, it's also unnecessary. Like, you really need anybody else there.
It's true, yeah. Because I mean, the whole premise is I go into the a cave and I disappear, and then later my footage is found. And
yeah, it's your take on found footage.
Yeah. I mean, it's a found footage sequel of a found footage movie, but it's also kind of a mockumentary.
Yeah, the mockumentary label is kind of, love-hate thing, because it just sounds dumb. Mockumentary, like I think of Christopher Guest and that whole thing, which is wonderful. So, but then you see a lot of these other ones, like Horror in the High Desert is kind of filmed similar ways, where it's a mockumentary, and it's that I guess technically that's right, but it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah, we all watched it and enjoyed it. The conceit of the film, I think, is what keeps you watching. It was a really cool idea for a sequel. Anyway, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering now, because I think that they're gonna re-release Blair Witch. They're re-releasing a bunch of stuff right now, but Blair Witch is gonna come out again. And I was just wondering for you guys, I mean, with that in mind, with this kind of found footage thing maybe resurfacing from Blair Witch, is this the time to get your movie out? And what's the plan? Right now, it's been to Defy, it's been to the festivals. You've got these two movies that kind of go hand in hand. Like, what's the next step? Like, where are you guys going with these films, and then the goal for the next thing?
Well, the thing about found footage is it's been alive and well out there. It's just it's a very small community, but it's hundreds of thousands of people, and that's why I enjoy making these films, is because I've found an audience in the community with these films that just eat them up. I mean, there's probably 10,000 found footage movies that have come out since Blair Witch, and some of them are some of them are just incredible. And Blair Witch coming back out is great, but it found footage hasn't gone anywhere. Like, especially if you go on Tubi, they're all on there.
I think it just signals to the broader community, right? That, because that's just one of those iconic ones. And I think it also is kind of a reminder, like, these films are awesome. I mean, we have a lot of people, independent filmmakers and other folks who watch Tubi, but then you have a lot of the mainstream folks. So I think that sometimes when a movie like that comes out in the mainstream, then it kind of whets the appetite for people who might be out of that niche community. They come join the community for a little while longer. It might go down, right? And then kind of come back up. But I guess the point is, like, this might be a really good opportunity to piggyback on that, or even be part of the wave to release your films, in some other way. And that's why I was just kind of wondering, like, what's the next step for getting your stuff out there, or are you already doing it in a meaningful way?
Yeah, it's
you're finding your audience already.
Yeah, I mean, it's so Chess is streaming right now on Tubi, and we keep saying Tubi. It's on like
shout out to Tubi,
20 different streaming services, but we mentioned Tubi because the revenue that we've gotten back, Tubi has made up 99% of that. So Tubi, like as far as independent filmmakers and getting your stuff on streaming services, we went through Film Hub, which is, kind of the distribution piece of how that got there. And then Tubi was one of the first to pick it up, like December 22. Yeah, 22.
Yeah.
November or December 22. And it's still on there. And we've gotten, with the streaming service, you don't know how many views you got. But the revenue that's come in off of that, they've made up 99% of it. So, Tubi's seems to pay out, at least outside looking in, of, going through Film Hub, because it is ad based, because you can't buy out of it currently. So, it seems to be more profitable for independent filmmakers to get that on there. And like Aaron said, there's stuff on Tubi that you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's wild stuff on it. There's old stuff that you can't find anywhere else. And, I wasn't a big fan starting to be. I was like, I don't want to watch commercials. I've got all these other streaming services. And I'm like, I don't care. I kind of miss it in a way, It's like, it's 30 seconds long and gives you a little break. And plus you can find
I'm with you 100%. And here's why I'm with you when it comes to those commercials. Because those commercials pay independent filmmakers.
Exactly right.
I mean, that's why Tubi pays about double what some of these international conglomerates pay, like Amazon.
Oh, more than double. I'd say
hundreds. Right. I was going to say that it's more than double.
Well, we'll put it in perspective. We and this is not a slight to them. This is just how it works. So Cineverse, which owns Screenbox, is probably the second highest contributor to our revenue from Chest. And we got on Screenbox, I think August of last year. And for an entire month, we're in the top 10 movies on Screenbox. So we were up there with Terrifier 2, I think had come out. And so I think we made it up as high as 3, but we stayed within that top 10 for an entire month. So I was telling Aaron, I was like, hey man, I'm excited. I think we're going to get a check. We're going to get that check after this. And Aaron's like, don't get your hopes up. And I'm like, you're just being a pessimist. Let's look at it. He goes, no, he said, dude, I don't think it's going. And he was right. Like, it did not turn into a check. It turned into tiny checks. But it's weird how that works. And I think over the next few years, we'll probably see more transparency with that, whether it has to be intervention from other agencies doing that. I mean, with the strike and everything that had come out, I think it opens up a door for a lot of people to start questioning things. The only service that it's on that I know we can count views is it's on YouTube for the Stash channel, their Stash Chills and Thrills or something like that. Yeah, I checked it the other day and it was 76,000 views, and that's up from 13,000 views the last time I checked it back in January. So, Nick, what you were saying about, or I don't know which one of you guys said about the Blair Witch Project coming out and giving a new life. Hopefully for us that does that. But yeah, what I've learned, I wasn't a found footage huge super fan before we got into Chess. I love Blair Witch Project just like everybody else. I was buying into it. I graduated high school in '99, so this was coming out. I was a senior in high school. Everybody was there. Kids throwing up in the aisles because they don't like the shaky cam. It obviously inspired Aaron in a lot of ways with Chess, and I think that did create this new movement of how you can make movies a different way. With Paranormal Activity, when it came out, it surpassed Blair Witch Project for the budget compared to profit of all time. They made the movie for like $15,000 and made millions and millions of dollars. So I think people saw that. Of millions. Yes, people saw that and got excited.
It's like 8 sequels.
What I've learned is, this community, this found footage community, is loyal, and they are defensive, and they will tell you in a heartbeat because Aaron gets a lot of shit about putting a score to the stuff and
they're
putting music to the.
They can be relentless,
and
but
it was just like, this is not you don't put a score to this. But there is a big community out there of found footage fans that love these things. They love to hate them too, but at least they're watching them.
Yeah, and I think
they're watching them. That's the key. They're watching them.
Exactly. It's like I read comments all the time. There's like Facebook groups and Discord channels for found footage, and somebody will watch Chest and they'll be like, "This was like," they just talk shit about it, and I'm just like, "Thanks for watching." You know, like
yeah,
I love it.
Like
so
I'm
much.
not gonna go back and fix it. Like,
I love going on Letterboxd. Like it's a daily.
I was just gonna say, you guys have a ton of reviews on Letterboxd.
Oh,
a lot of good ones too.
Oh yeah, no, I love them all. Like, because I think it was Eazy-E when MWA started getting their records smashed, and you know, like they had the, especially with the movie Straight Outta Compton, you can see when they're driving by on their bus and they've got like a like some road equipment out there and they're smashing their CDs and they're like, oh man, you know, everybody's mad, and he was just smiling. They're like, oh, he goes, well, somebody's buying them shits. Like it's somebody is, and as long as they're watching it, I don't care what they say. And the reviews.
And there's the thing,
so
that community, they're watching it all the way through too. Like that's the key. They're not turning it off. They're literally, they could hate it from beginning to end, but they're voracious. And that's what's great about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, we made a little horror thriller called All Light Will End with director Chris Blake, and Josh Moody shot
Ted's
it.
in that.
Yeah, Ted's in that, and Jenna Moody, who's now blown up. She's like the queen of wardrobe in Hollywood. That movie has more reviews than some of the biggest movies out. And you're like, the horror community is insane. Like, I think it's close to 2,000 reviews in the aggregate for a movie that is frankly a 4-star movie, and out of 10. So it's
4 out of 5 or
no. And I can be honest about it. It doesn't mean we're not proud of it. It just is what it is. Yeah. And you learn to sort of live with that. And I'm not always on the side of Letterboxd reviews. I love Letterboxd. I know intern Sam is huge on Letterboxd. I know most filmmakers are. And I don't know. To me, some of these reviews, especially from the quote unquote Letterboxd pros, it's the mental gymnastics they have to play to pull out some of the so-called plot points that they're reviewing on blow me away. Just this unbelievable game of mental twister they play to review some of there's a really terrible review of one of our movies, Another Version of You, that we did with Maki Dap. And some of the stuff this person is talking about, we never considered. It was never in the storyline. She's calling our protagonist an incel. We didn't know what that word meant when we shot the movie. Like she brought that culture to us. We're like, incel? What's an incel? We had to look it up. Now this is in 2018. It's like, we don't know these, like you are looking for something in this that we did not intend as filmmakers. And it's just remarkable to see the effort and the veracity that these reviewers put in to these negative reviews, where you can immediately tell that they've never made a movie.
Yeah.
And I'll quote Maki Dap by saying, his quote is, making movies is hard. So if you've ever made a movie, you would not consider giving a film 1 star. Any movie that's finished is automatically above 1 star to me.
Yeah.
And if you've been there, you know it.
It completely changed my perspective. Exactly what you just said, Chris, about how I talk about movies. Like after we made Chess, while we're making it, it was just like the curtain went up of, I will never say anything. Like, I'll be critical. I'll say, all right, well, this is what I didn't like about the movie or what I did like, but I'm just not going to call it trash, especially local films. And I think this is really important to, for people to really pay attention to. And for the most part, I think the Nashville community does a great job at that. Everybody's supportive of each other, but I mean, everybody likes to jab and poke some things, but making an entire, especially a feature, anybody that's made a feature film, I don't care how bad it is, and I've seen some really bad ones from people that I know.
Yeah.
But I would never to their face or behind their back say,
there you go.
That's trash. You know, that shouldn't happen, because you finished a movie. Finishing a movie is really, really hard. And to finish it and not come out on the other side of, I'll never want to do this again. I hate everybody that I've done this with. You know, you could be friend. Me and Aaron known each other most of our lives. And, you know, I was really worried. I was like, I hope that we're still friends after this, you know, but we never really got into fights or anything. But it's something that I think that's just so important. And, you know, Ted Welch, friend of the podcast here, he's said this so many times to me of, and Aaron too, of, you know, it's so much easier just to be a nice person, you know, about things. It's kind of difficult to be an asshole if you really want to commit to that. If you really want to be one of those letterbox reviewers that your life is just consumed of negativity, and you want to put that out there, I'm still going to take your money when you go watch the movie and say something about it. But you know, it's unnecessary in those kind of hateful ways. That's the reason why I'm not a huge fan of social media in general, because of that. I think a lot of it's just really toxic. But again, just, you know, local filmmaking does a pretty good job at it, but I will never say anything critical about someone that's made a movie and finished it, no matter how bad it is.
Yeah.
Unless it's Birdemic. If it's Birdemic, then I think it's okay to say that.
Hey, he's making a living.
I love it so much. I love the Riff Tracks version so much. They've made 3 of them now. They may make another one. It's a train wreck that I can't stop watching.
Yeah,
I'm going to write that down. Birdemic.
The two like main philosophies that I came through when I made my first film and that I applied to the second one was, I'm not going to spend millions of dollars on a film to try to make this like epic thing, because it doesn't matter what you do, people are going to just crap all over it, no matter how much money you spend, no matter like how much time you spend on it. People are going to have the same effect as if you just had fun and didn't break your entire life apart trying to make a film and tear your friendships, your relationships apart. Like that happens to a lot of filmmakers. And so I just go with it. And if I don't have money, then I just figure out another way to do things. So if somebody was to say, hey, I want to give you $1 million to make a movie, I might spend half of that on the movie and then just pay everybody a lot more, you know, like,
or market it.
Yeah,
I was
marketing.
say that the other half on marketing. That's it.
Other half to market it, because before we got to get into some polls, gentlemen. But before we get into these polls, I just want to say a couple of things. The first thing is housekeeping. So our first conversation, for those that are wondering, when we brought that up at the beginning of the conversation, happened in 2022. It's episode 295. So go to episode 295 and you will hear our original conversation, which focused on these guys' background and their movie Chest. So go to the back catalog. It's an evergreen episode. You'll love it. Episode 295. The other thing I was going to say before we get into polls is just a compliment to both of you. I think after seeing 2 feature films now, I realized that you have some built-in assets that make you different from everyone else. That's really helping you out. I don't know if you want to mention the rough budget of Jeffrey's Hell. I know it. I don't want to say it. I'd rather you guys say it. I think it's a compliment and a testament to your resourcefulness. You guys have access to land. You guys have access to caves. Well, when doing the research for this, I found out there's a bunch of people who are scared of caves. They're as scared of caves as they are of monsters, because they think that monsters live in caves. So
no, Chris, you don't understand. The cave is the monster.
Cave
yes.
is the monster.
Yeah, the cave is the monster. And this was kind of news to me as a Boy Scout, you know.
Thank you. That's like right there.
I'm used to caves, but a lot of people find caves scary. So you have access to these things, which makes producing so much easier. And it allows you to have a framework to say, okay, we can, if we don't have anything else, we could shoot a movie if it lives outside or it has access to caves or sort of old abandoned homes, or maybe you can get an Airbnb in that area and film in there, or whatever you might do. But your ability to write around those confines is a huge asset. I think the other thing too is your ingenuity and your resourcefulness. The way your DPs shoot on land and outside is really remarkable. And the way you're able to find ways to overcome things that most people try to fix with dollars. So kudos.
Yeah, and that's what I like about low budget filmmaking, is because you have to think out of the box. You can't just throw money at something, make it go away. And that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I tell people is like, don't write your movie first without analyzing your resources. Because, if your first movie, you don't want to have big car chase scenes and explosions and stuff like that, unless you happen to have an uncle that owns a pyrotechnic business or something, like that.
Then that's a resource, right? Now you have that as an asset.
So if all you have is a house, then make that movie in your house. And
it's the whole Robert Rodriguez thing, right, Aaron? Where it's like, before I do anything, let me write down and collect. And this is something I'm actually trying to be a lot better at, which is aggregating my resources, aggregating my advantages, instead of reacting and then saying, okay, what's my advantage? Okay, call this person, grab this thing. Oh, I know this guy, or I know this girl. Oh, I have this thing. Oh, this person owes me a favor. Instead, in the very beginning, aggregate all your resources. And then you kind of realize, man, okay, we got a lot we can play with here. And then when you go to the rest of the team, it's like, well, don't hide your resources for me. Throw them into the pot. What do you have? And then you have something.
Yeah, I like that. It's the Godfather approach, man. I was just thinking about you sitting back in your chair and like, who owes me a favor?
Nick, so many people owe me a favor.
Right.
I'm just going to tell you.
It is something that I think we got.
And I mean that in the nicest way, but it's just, right. I do a lot of free stuff.
I think we got really lucky with chess in a lot of ways. And with Jeffrey's Hell, it's kind of a different beast, but the same thing applies of, Aaron writing this, like he's writing it within mind, like where he's going to film this. It wasn't. Yeah. And kind of the newer stuff that he's been working on, I'm starting to write a little bit with him. We were talking about this earlier before we started, kind of some ideas, and I think this is why me and Aaron are very different in a lot of ways, but our approach to filmmaking is very similar. Of we self-funded chess, first of all. I mean, that was just me and him spending our money, our personal money on that. Great thing, best thing we ever did, because we owe nobody anything. We did call in those favors, we did all that, but kind of once you do that once and it works and you kind of get away with it, you start thinking about, all right, well, now I'm writing this thing, and if you're writing what you're doing, you can always change it. If you're writing something, you're like, well, I have this scene that I'm writing that is supposed to take place in a gigantic field that has a silo in it. And, if you're thinking about where you're going to film that, if you have something in mind, it makes it a lot easier rather than writing it and then going to try to find it. So, writing around, especially these kind of Appalachian horror movies, writing around where you're going to film it, what you're able to get, what favors you may call in, there were several things that we probably could have done, but we just couldn't get access to. The cave being one of them. We talked to the Lost Sea, which is a commercial cave in East Tennessee that Aaron actually worked at. We were talking about that earlier too. And I talked to them about letting us use the cave, and they're commercially owned. So it didn't work out, which was fine. And they had their reasons. It wasn't anything against us. They just don't let anybody do that there. But the cave that we end up using is kind of a public cave. I mean, it's on a guy's land that we got permission to film there, but that's just kind of the story of, if you're going to write these kinds of movies, it's so much easier to be so organized up front to know like what your options are. And if this option A doesn't work, then write around it and know what your budget is, know what kind of money you're willing to spend. If you've got to pay somebody $500 to shoot in their house for a day, in their front yard, then know that you're going to do that beforehand before you get to the point. And I think that's where a lot of filmmakers probably fail, is they have these aspirations like, oh, the money will just come in, the time will just come in, the resources just come in. And there's so many examples of people just never finishing a movie. And that's got to be so frustrating. So, going through that process, I think,
and heartbreaking.
It's very heartbreaking. And my heart breaks for them, because maybe they just didn't know, or maybe they were just too aspirational and think, oh, well, somebody will come through. Well, nobody's ever going to come through on the money side if you really need it. It's just not going to happen. So
you do find out who's riding with you and who's not.
Right.
If you take the cynical point of view, at least I think the cynical view of it is, oh, I see who's my friend now and I see who's not. I think of it more pragmatically. It's not necessarily optimistic, but it's pragmatic, which is like, no, the level of your support is a reflection of the level of your competence. So the thing that they won't say out loud is that they don't think you're good enough to warrant their money being spent on it. And when people start running towards you with money and activity and interest, you've struck lightning. Like, you've struck lightning in a bottle. Like you've done something that people are really interested in. And that's your signal. That's not noise. That's signal. It's like, okay, we need to go with this. People like this idea. This is getting funding. Let's go. Let's do this thing. Yeah. So that's the pragmatic view.
Or it's coming back to the well too many times. Right. Yeah. You can ask up front and you've asked, and then you've busted your budget. You ask again, you busted your budget. You asked again. Yeah. It's not happening. Right. People get tired of that. And to your point, though, they lose confidence in your ability to produce. And at some point that well does definitely dry up.
Yeah. The only time that happens is in studio films, where you basically blow your budget. The money's lost, right? Like sunken loss fallacy is like a type of bias. And the filmmaker says, and the producer say, well, we need another $1 million to finish it and make it work. You have to give the $1 million. Otherwise you threw away the $20 million you already spent. Right.
And then that person
place where you have to finish it.
That person will probably never make another movie again unless it's a gigantic success.
Unless it's a gigantic success.
If it's a gigantic success, all of it, nobody remembers that you ask for more money again. So, but it has to meet that. And if it doesn't, that's such a risky game to play that I would not want to be a part of. Like I would, if a lot of people ask us, and you guys ask too, and I know you're trying to get to this other thing, but I just got to say this with money. We've thought about, if somebody gave us millions of dollars and said, you can do whatever you want to, first of all, that's terrifying, because if somebody's trying to give you that much money, you're going to have to sell your soul for something. There's just no way around that. Nobody is that.
They're going to want it back.
They're going to take they're going to want your soul something. And your money.
Yep.
So all EPs want their money back. Yeah.
Of course. But me and Aaron's also talked about making people investing in movies, not knowing what they're investing in, is probably one of the dumbest things you can invest in. Because if you don't know anything about filmmaking, if you think you're doing it as an investment, like playing the stock market, you're wrong. It's not going to work. If you think you're going to get your money back almost immediately, even if it is a success, you're wrong. There's so many better things you can put your money in, unless you really want to be a filmmaker. You really want to be a part of it. Whether you know anything about it or not, if you try to understand it and understand that putting that money in, it's probably going to be gone. And if you ever get anything back, you may break even at some point, but it's very rare where everything aligns and you're a multi-millionaire off of your first project. But it happens, and with us, like if somebody come in and said, here's, I don't know, let's just say $10 million. What do you want to do? Like Aaron said, it would be kind of difficult to say, all right, well, now you got to write a movie that's a $10 million budget, but we don't have that experience, and like we can think about what movies we've seen that we would want to do in that area, but it's almost like I would rather have a smaller budget and have 100% of the control, have nobody telling you what to do. You owe nobody anything. So just write to your budget. And if that comes along, it's all got to line up.
No, man.
I think you got a
$500,000 film. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like $250,000 films.
I think
and then put $250,000 into the marketing on each film.
And
then you got a slate of films that are marketed. and then one of those is going to be a banger,
One of them's gonna
and
work.
then you'll make all the money back.
That's one strategy. I'd also say just write what you know, Nick. Right? Like you just
that's what I'm saying.
Just write what you would always write, and know that you have this bank of cash, this grip of cash to help make your vision be the highest level vision it can be, right? So instead of doing a steady cam, you can have a crane in there, maybe, right? Like you can do some different things.
They got now versus 250,000,
right?
They could do amazing things, then take another 250,000, put it into marketing on each of a slate of films.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, with that voracious community, come on, bro. They
well, it depends on if you want to keep doing found footage films. So, because
found footage, I don't think they would continue to do that. I think they would continue to.
Well, I don't want to speak for them.
Movies. Well, I'm gonna speak for them. So you pretend it ain't even here. What I'm saying is because what I'm liking about what you guys do is not just found footage. It's really about, like you said, there's an Appalachian type of and the other part is whatever's happening in your the folklore. That's what I was going to say. There's a folklore aspect of it. There's something raw and natural to those stories where it's not necessarily contrived. It's not like you're having to invent. You're taking something that you've heard in the past, something that is local, right? So there's a lot of that it doesn't have to be found footage. It can just be something that pulls from folklore. There's so much folklore.
You could make a Quiet Place too, the one with John
and there's
Krasinski.
So much beauty
that would fall into Anthony and Josh's, I think, auspices of filmmaking. Outside, minimal dialogue kind of thing. That's a way to spend $10 million, or at least $5 million or $2 million, and spend the rest to market the shit out of it.
Yes,
all right. Let's get to these polls. All right,
all right.
Intern Sam. Drop these polls on us, Sam.
I'm here. One thing I'd like to mention real quick. Chris, you mentioned caves earlier.
Yes.
And as someone who did Boy Scouts for a single year,
yes,
caves terrify me. If I'm just being honest here, I have a lot of respect for you guys filming in a cave. I could never do it. But onto the polls. Polls. So for the first poll. It's kind of a basic poll, but I think it'll be interesting here. So, Who is the best horror director of all time? Okay, so we have 3 options here, and then I gave kind of like a other blanket option.
And just to remind the audience, Sam, these are real polls that you published on YouTube that have a limited multiple choice, and you're about to reveal that to us. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Okay, so coming in first place is actually a tie. I think this is the first tie we've ever had on this segment. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure.
No, I've never seen a tie. I've never seen it.
Okay, so this is it. This is the first time. Okay, so we have a tie for first place between John Carpenter and George Romero at 39%. And then coming in, I guess it's second, that would mean, or third, would be Wes Craven with 13%. And then final would be the other category, which is sort of a blanket at 10%. Now, the one thing I would like to mention with that is I used an image of Sam Raimi for the other category. Multiple comments discouraging the use of Sam Raimi. People are not a fan of Sam Raimi, which I didn't understand. But
I don't
get what's wrong with Sam Raimi?
I love Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi.
Now, what's the?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Aaron.
He's one of my favorites. He would be probably second to John Carpenter, but I think Sam Raimi definitely deserves a spot in there for horror director.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't. Also, the surprise there is Wes Craven, right? So he's the guy who we might not put in this podcast at number 1, but if you asked someone on the sidewalk who isn't into horror films, name a horror director, they're probably going to say Wes Craven.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a little bit. So are we saying, and are the people saying Wes is like, and no shade to Wes, if you're watching this, Wes, but it's like, are we saying he's overrated? Are the people in the poll saying he's overrated? What do we think about that?
I think maybe I really like Wes Craven personally. So I love Scream. I think Nightmare on Elm Street's
Scream introduced
as
like a
well.
new genre of horror film. So I mean, how can you?
And spoof films. So that's how you know you're on point. When people are spoofing your stuff, you did something right.
What do you guys think, Josh, Aaron?
Well, I think if the Wayans brothers redid Chest, it would make
See?
You're right. I mean, Scream did. It does open up this other genre of things. I mean,
right.
I think, John Carpenter is definitely up there. I mean, I like all of those. I think Aaron's got his personal opinions about Sam Raimi because while you guys were talking, by the way, you can't see this. I'm looking around Aaron's room. There's so much Evil Dead stuff in here on the back of his Jeep. This is how I know because Aaron drives a red Jeep, the one that's in Chest and also in Jeffrey's Hell. That's his personal Jeep. And on the back of the Jeep, because you can see this in the movie, he has the spare tire cover is Ash from the Evil Dead with the chainsaw hand.
Actually, Army of Darkness.
Or sorry, Army of Darkness. Yeah, I forgot he didn't get the chainsaw hand until then. But, yeah, he's a big fan to say the least. So as soon as you said Sam Raimi, I'm like, well, I'm gonna put the mic down.
John Carpenter's. I mean, The Thing is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's just unbelievable movie, and one that I think is. I was just thinking of it, and now it slipped my mind.
John Carpenter.
We already talked about John Carpenter.
Well,
I'll
Aaron,
figure it out.
maybe you were going to say this because I thought the huge omission in all this was Hitchcock.
Alfred
Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Alfred.
Yeah,
Definitely,
Alfred
yeah.
Hitchcock.
Well, that was that was on Sam. I mean,
Well, no, I know, but I'm saying he did give an other category where people would comment
It's true.
and
Do write-ins.
Yep.
Yeah. Did anybody mention Hitchcock in this, Sam? In the other category?
As of earlier today, I did not see any. That doesn't
That's
mean
crazy.
that there aren't any. But yeah, I just noticed the big Sam Raimi hate mainly. I saw someone say Mike Flanagan threw his name in there.
Well, yeah, I mean that's not bad, but that's also pretty new.
Yeah.
Doing a little research.
One thing I will say about
the Sam Raimi
John
thing.
Carpenter also, the reason why I like John Carpenter so much is because he did his own scores, for the majority of, and
I did not know that.
my favorite John Carpenter movie is not Halloween. It's not The Thing. It's A Day to Live with Roddy Piper. It's probably in the top 10 favorite movies
That
of all
score
time for me
is maddening though.
because that score is so good. And Roddy Piper is an underrated actor. He should have done more than that in Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Hell Comes to Frogtown's a great movie.
But that's
you got me there. Now I got to think. I'm going to
write
go
this
watch
down
Roddy
too.
Piper, man.
Hell
because
Comes to
I almost
Frogtown.
forgot about him in
I'm writing it
movies.
down,
Like
too.
he was good. He was good.
In They Live, the fight scene between Roddy Piper and Keith David is, I think it's 9 minutes long. I timed it one time. It is one of the most ridiculous fight scenes in any movie.
So good.
And it's just them
Yeah,
wrestling.
I have to watch it.
It's an
I had a
underrated
Roddy
movie.
Piper action figure as a kid, Nick.
Didn't we all, bro? Come on now.
Yeah, I had the
had to.
little rubber
You
one.
could be a kid. not have it.
Right, exactly.
I didn't realize till I was an adult that all those action figures were made out of dildo material.
Hey,
They had
I
us
don't even know
play.
what to say.
They had us
No, no,
playing
wait,
with.
wait.
They
No,
had
no,
us
no, no.
playing. They had us playing with dildo
No.
material.
I
when
like
we
to
were
think
kids.
that all dildos are
Gentlemen,
made out of
gentlemen.
Roddy Piper material.
Exactly. There you go. That's it.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry to break it to you, but
No. I was gonna say this, Chris. I was like, no,
Big-
they weren't made. They
big,
weren't
big,
made out
big
of
corporate
dildo
businesses
material.
had us playing with
They
big
weren't
dildo
made out of
material
dildo material.
as
They
children.
were all dildos.
They were all dildos. Yes, they were all very, very uncomfortable, misshapen dildos. Yeah, I just thought I'd drop that on you guys. You know,
Yep. The
sorry
other
to
don't
ruin
want it on
sorry to
me,
ruin your
Chris.
childhood.
The other-
Yeah,
give
don't
us-
put it on me.
Give us the next poll, Sam.
I just want to throw in
Alright,
that
so-
Toby Hopper is one of my favorites too. Texas Chainsaw
There you
Massacre,
go.
Mhm.
incredible guy. Also, very inexperienced person that made one of the most iconic movies.
Yes, he did. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is dope.
Drop it on you.
All right, Sam, hop on this next poll.
All right. So for this next one, it's topical given the movie that comes out at the end of the week. But what is the best or most quintessential, so to either, Tim Burton movie? So coming in at number 1 was Edward Scissorhands
Yeah.
at 60%, which I thought was pretty unsurprising. Most people, it's a very likable movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Second place was Batman at 22%. Then, and this was weird, third place was Other. So the blanket category came in third with 11%. Notable inclusions were Sweeney Todd. And then in dead last was Ed Wood at 7%, which I researched and was his highest rated film on both Letterboxd and Rotten Tomatoes. So I thought it was kind of interesting that it came in last from kind of the general populace, so to speak.
Yeah, I thought Ed Wood was one of those cult classic movies because I don't remember it doing well.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people know about
didn't
that one.
well.
Yeah, it did not do well when it first came out.
Yeah, see, that was the key. It didn't do well when it was out, and I can't remember if it was because the movie was poor or there was something happening around the actors in that film at the time that somehow messed it up. But that's why I think it gets good ratings, maybe because it was like a hidden gem.
Yeah.
Because something was going on in the zeitgeist at the time that movie just didn't hit. It's kind of like we talked about Boys to Men earlier. Color of Love did not hit.
No.
I like Color of Love.
Yeah.
But they put that song out in the wrong year at the wrong time. It came out like in July or something like that. Like everyone was on the summer bangers, and then Color of Love came out. You're like,
well, it didn't get supported by the label either. They spent a bunch of money on the video. The label didn't.
Yeah.
Babyface on its way out. It was a Babyface song, so they're trying to sort of cash a lottery ticket on Babyface again. There was a lot of things that were happening with that song, and I liked Color of Love. It wasn't the best song on that album.
It wasn't.
And they've done such a bad job of like picking singles over the last 3 or 4 albums. I think it's been interesting, but it's also like Big Lebowski, where that movie just didn't do well at first, and now if you haven't seen it or don't know a line from it, it's kind of like you're not really interested in film.
Well, and you're not interested in drinking because if you haven't played the Big Lebowski drinking game where you take a shot every time they say the F word, then you haven't ever had a drink.
If you can survive that,
you do that with Chest.
You know what I mean? There's
Chest has got a lot of those in there.
246 F words in Chest.
Oh, he counted them. That's awesome.
Wow. So that's 247 shots. You're not going to survive.
No, you're going to die. Yeah. You're going to die.
Yeah. I think the next cult film that they have, the Coen brothers have, is Burn After Reading. It's another movie that didn't do great in the box office, but has cult qualities to it.
It's not that good though.
I don't know if you ever see Brad Pitt like that or Clooney like that.
No, that's fair.
I mean that.
I'll give you that.
That
John
was
Malkovich is good too.
And Malkovich is so
He's
good.
really
The,
good
the League of
Idiots.
Idiots. The League of Idiots. I stole that line and I use it every day.
So I got a question about
idiots.
The Tim Burton stuff. So on these polls, like you just gave them 3 options in another category, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, what made you pick those 3?
Interesting question, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
This is some behind the scenes. So Edward Scissorhands I knew was kind of a favorite. So I kind of pushed that one forward. It's one of the only movies I've really heard my mom talk about a lot. It's like
it's great.
Film she really likes. So I pushed that one forward. Batman I felt like I had to include. And then upon kind of looking at the films, Ed Wood stood out as both critically very popular, but also I thought it was kind of like an interesting kind of sidestep.
Yeah, how do you not put it in there as the best if it's his best critical? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. It's also my dad's favorite. I talked to him a little bit about because he is a big Tim Burton fan. My dad's a really big Tim Burton fan, or at least he was. And so his favorite was Ed Wood. And then once I found out that it was also his highest rated on a couple platforms, I figured I'd throw it in there.
That's interesting. Also, I'm asking because, Sam, I don't want to assume, but I think you're probably younger than us. How old are you?
I'm 18. I'll be 19 in November.
All right. So, guys, this is what I love talking about different age groups, about somebody like Tim Burton, of what's coming out with Beetlejuice. And, some kids have never seen Beetlejuice. And I hear all these stories of parents introducing their kids to Beetlejuice for the first time. That's amazing. But for me, Tim Burton is like from the beginning. Pee-wee's Big Adventure was his first, major movie. And that, I mean, that's just that whole, and that one always gets left out of a lot of conversations because it's probably the least Tim Burton like of what you know him from, later. But it's also one of the most genuine Tim Burton movies. And also with him and Danny Elfman together, just created this director, someone to do your composer, to do your score. I think that's probably one of my favorite duos in that regard of all time, no matter what movie they do, but especially Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Batman. They're all good, but Batman especially was.
I like Batman Returns.
Batman Returns is,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the original
Batman.
Batman, but yeah, Batman Returns.
Danny DeVito
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you. See, you just threw this out. You brought me back to my childhood, and like that might be my first horror movie I've ever seen.
And that's the thing. There's a lot of the Tim Burton movies that people would not consider horror movies, but with Large Marge, the scene with Large Marge and Pee-wee's Big Adventure,
that freaking gave me nightmares.
They're all horror adjacent for sure. Like,
yeah,
they're like gateway horror movies.
Yeah, he tries to sneak that in. It's like, hey, this is a kids movie, but then we're going to traumatize you. But the first time,
that's why I don't watch horror movies like that, because that thing scared the crap out of me, man.
It just comes out of nowhere, and the claymation behind it, it was wonderful.
You got it. Yeah, it freaked the hell out of me.
I was exposed to like Pee-wee's Clubhouse and Pee-wee's Big Adventure when I was younger. That's my favorite Tim Burton movie as well. I haven't seen a ton of them. I actually haven't seen Beetlejuice. I'm gonna watch it this week, kind of to prepare to see Beetlejuice. But I wanted to include Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but I thought
Sam knows our audience.
I didn't think they would go for that too much. So.
Hey Sam, after you watch the Beetlejuice movie, see, this takes me back to my childhood as well. You got to watch the cartoon.
Yep,
man, I used to come home from school and
it's all
watch
on
the
Tubi
cartoon.
now.
It is. Speaking of Tubi, it's on Tubi.
Tubi again.
Oh, I'm on it. I love that
Tubi
show.
playing big.
Sam,
do we have a? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
Didn't Tim Burton do Big Fish?
Yeah, he did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one I always
with
forget
John
about.
August.
I really like that movie. It was a great book too. But,
Yeah.
Anyway,
that was mostly filmed in Tennessee, by the way.
Oh, nice. Look at
Big Fish is a great movie. Who did James and the Giant Peach?
He produced it.
Okay.
I found that out.
Okay, I was gonna say, I feel like that was another Burton influenced.
Kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas was not Tim Burton directed. That everybody thinks it was directed by him. That he produced, and the guy that directed, nobody remembers his name, but I saw something with him.
Henry Selick.
Yes, I think Sam knows his name. Yeah,
I consider.
So Sam's 18, Aaron, but he's not 18 in film.
You're right.
Yeah. He's like 60 in film.
Nice.
I do my best.
You can ask him a bunch of stuff about movies. He probably knows.
Chris,
yeah.
You know, Sam is the youngest of us.
Yes.
Because he's the only one of us who will say what age he's about to be.
Yeah. We're not doing that shit.
We're not doing that.
I'm just like, figure it out.
My birthday just passed, and people asked me every hour how old I was. And the best response I got to any of it, because all of it's horrible, guys. The best response I got to any of it was, "Ooh, black don't crack." And I'm okay, good. At least I don't look my age. Jesus.
Right.
Do you have another poll, Sam, by the way?
I do not. No, I just have the two.
Okay. These are awesome polls. I want to say one thing about the polls that's really interesting. And this is not just our polls, but any poll. If you have options and then that other will tend to be last place for whatever reason. Even if it's an poll, like you have two candidates and then the other will be way down and the two main candidates will be way up on the polling. However, in Vegas, it's the exact opposite. If somebody says, will you bet on this or the field? You always pick the field. Because the options are too many. Like your chance of winning in the field is so much higher than winning on this one particular player or one particular thing. And in polls, we don't do that. Like if you think about how many horror directors there are, for example, how could it be possible that John Carpenter win that? just by sheer numbers alone, but that's how we are with taste.
But it's the nature of the poll, though, because people are normally confined and feel more comfortable being confined to the choices given.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the
except
beauty
in Vegas.
of those polls. Exactly.
Except in Vegas. Yep.
Yeah. And
Sam?
I just wanted to, and it was obvious that I just wanted to tell the guys, you're talking about the polls, and that's the way Chris is. He likes to talk about our polls.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere he goes.
Mm-hmm. I assess your polls.
Polls.
Polls, Aaron.
It's just a fun word to say. The more you say it, the
It
more
is,
it loses
it
meaning.
is.
It's like polls.
You're right. Say the word walk. I used to do that all the time with the walk. It's like
walk.
And now you sound like you're saying quack.
Quack.
All right, we're stupid. All right, it's time. Thank you, Sam.
Sam,
another cheers to you, man. We appreciate you.
Great job on the polls. Papa Bear, can you bring us some things we should know, please?
Well, I guess it's time for our older audience.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Hey.
Yep.
I thought you
looking
were gonna
good,
say
Papa Bear.
It's our cowboy audience, but yeah, we'll take. Older is fine.
Well, Aaron and Josh do horror films.
Papa Bear looks like Hemingway in the Cuba years.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
Key West. The horror genre has really dedicated fans. They're probably the most dedicated, probably most knowledgeable about their genre than maybe any other genre. And so I was hard pressed, to find something that Josh and Aaron might not know, but I'm sure they will know this. And
Okay.
On this things we should know, I'm giving out some bonus things we should know along the way when we get there. And because horror fans are so knowledgeable, I'm sure they know that the father of horror is Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
And I'm sure they know that I Spit on Your Grave and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, are the two films that have been banned the most in countries.
Okay.
And of course, we all know that Silence of the Lambs is the only horror film to win an Oscar for Best Picture.
I don't know if we all know that.
Really?
She puts the lotion in the basket or she gets the hose again.
It puts the lotion on its skin.
Put the lotion in the
basket.
basket.
The hose again.
So what I want to ask Josh and Aaron is, what was the first horror film
Clarice.
In color.
Okay.
Oof. In color.
Wizard of Oz. Does that count?
Well,
First horror film in color.
How horrible was that?
Wow. The
Man,
first
that's tough.
horror film in color.
So it had to be in the 70s.
Yeah, can you give a year or a decade?
You
at
have to
least?
give the year.
You have to give the year. That's
Right.
the thing, Josh.
Well, yeah.
Is it a mainstream movie?
You got to answer the question, man. He doesn't give clues. Papa Bear doesn't give clues.
Oh man.
Phone a friend. I would call Aaron, so if he doesn't know it, I don't.
Well,
Right.
your friend's right there next to you.
I feel
Yeah,
like I'm
that'd be
gonna know
hilarious.
this immediately when I hear it because I remember this, like I remember an ad for it, and it's like, that voice of like, now in color or something like,
Technicolor.
yeah. God, I have no idea.
I don't know.
No guesses? Okay. How about you, Nick?
Night of the Living Dead.
That's black and white.
They made it into color later. They added color to it, but it was black.
There you
and white.
go. It was in color when they added it.
So is that it?
When
He didn't say it was
Is
released
this a
in color
technicality?
first. I'm just saying. Yeah, right.
You could be right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's probably
I'm
an
going
old-
with that one.
It's probably
Okay, I
much
got Nick
older
down
than-
as Night of the Living Dead. Is that right, Nick?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going with Birds. The Birds.
The Birds.
Oh
Yeah.
That was black and white.
No,
You
I
know-
like the color.
No, that's
It
in
was?
color.
It's in
You
color.
know when The Birds came out, right?
That was like in the late
60s.
60s, right?
63, I think.
Early 60s.
Or what
Or
was it?
early 60s. Okay, early 60s.
What was it?
Like, he dropped a 63 on us, man. He wasn't like, mid 60s, late 60s. No.
I don't know. That's what popped in my head. I'm probably completely wrong.
No, we should look that up. You're probably right. I'll be mad at that, though. All
What
right,
do
what
you
is
guys,
it, PB?
what do you guys
All right.
got?
They didn't have anything.
Yep, go PB.
So-
They don't have any. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Rear
All right.
window.
It was
That's my guess. Rear window.
Rear
Terrence-
window. Okay, I'm write that down. Aaron's rear window.
Director Terrence Fisher's
Oh.
1957
Hmm.
The Curse of Frankenstein was the most important horror film since Universal's 1931 Dracula, which was directed by Todd Browning, because its contemporary impact was immense. It was the first horror film in color, and its critical reception was savage.
Wow.
Wait a second. Was that,
What does that mean?
the second Frankenstein movie? That wasn't the first Frankenstein movie, right? Because the first one was in black and white.
in 1931,
There you go.
and
Yep.
by Todd, and it was just Frankenstein. But this was The Curse
The
of
Curse
Frankenstein.
of Frankenstein. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I
And
got that.
Terrence Fisher came out in the next year, 58, with a color version of Dracula.
Ooh.
So,
Okay,
but
so
you can
what was
see-
what was the year
when
on the
was
Curse of
Bride?
Frankenstein, Papa Bear?
1957.
1957. So the next year, 1958, he had Dracula.
Dracula. And when was
Yeah.
Bride of Frankenstein?
I don't know.
Yeah, look that one up.
Yeah, we need
Um,
to look it up. Intern
but you
Sam,
can
if he's there,
imagine-
look that up maybe.
How, folks watching horror films, and they were going to theaters, obviously,
Yeah.
to do that in black and white all those years. And then all of a sudden one comes out and you see the color of blood
Yeah.
and how impactful that was.
You
at the
actually
time.
see the red for the first time, the sort of the texture of it for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reaction was savage.
Yeah, what does savage mean? Does it mean the good or bad? Like,
Well,
do people like
That's the way
it?
that's the way the source worded it.
Okay.
They didn't elaborate, but that implied that a lot of people didn't like it. They were scared by it.
I would
and
think
didn't like it.
in 1957, Savage had not yet become cool as it is today.
Yeah,
Right.
you're not a savage. Yeah, you're not a savage. It's not a cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good point, Josh. It's not a cool term. Well, Papa Bear, you did it again. That is definitely a thing we should know. And I don't want Editor Kate to hate me, but I was going to guess Soylent Green. It crossed my mind for a second.
It's people.
There's so many
Soylent
movies
Green is
in
made of people.
so many horror movies in the 50s and 60s that I just have not gotten to at this point. Like, there's tons of them, like that
Yeah.
you just don't even think about until you're like, oh yeah, that's like pop
but-
culture.
but
Once
PB
once
throws
they
these
escaped
out
the
at you,
B
though.
theaters, then it was on.
Yeah, but when PB throws these out at you, what you have to remember is that like this now has to become canon for you,
Yeah.
right? If this is your genre, it's kind of like, well, you gotta watch the first color horror movie.
Yeah, now you
That's
guys
just
have a
like-
thing you should know that you can walk around with, like in film circles, and be like, well, it's not the first thing. The first thing was The Curse of Frankenstein or whatever. Like now you can be that guy.
You have to start with actually.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, right?
Hey,
Actually, it wasn't Soylent Green. I was on a podcast.
We're talking about the birds.
Yeah.
You mentioned the birds. A little shout
Yes.
out to our local favorite theater here, Full Moon Cineplex in Hermitage,
Yeah.
Tennessee. Ben and
been
Stacy
there.
Dixon that own the place. They're actually showing the birds this Saturday, I think.
Heck yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean those guys are great. If
I love that
if you've
place.
Never been there, you definitely got to go. It's for horror movie fans especially. Just walk in the building, no matter what they're showing. Just go in there. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, shout out to them. They actually support independent filmmakers. They don't just say they do. And
Right.
the other thing is, when you go in there, it's full of frights and insane collectibles that I don't know if they have value outside of that space, but inside of that space, they're incredibly valuable, and they kind of set the mood for what you're about to watch. Whatever, like you said, whatever they're screening. I mean, every corner is filled with a goblin or a ghoul or a fright of some sort. So
Yeah, it's
it's a
basically
really
a
really cool
museum.
place. Yeah, it's basically a museum. Yeah, for,
Yeah.
And I've
sure.
been there 100 times, and I see something different every time I go.
every time.
And
you
I
go,
asked
exactly.
Ben one time, I was like, "Did you change this stuff out?" He goes, "I'll never tell." I'm like, well, I see something different all the time, and he's like, "You're just scratching the surface." He's like, "We got a whole theater full of other stuff that's not out here yet." So, okay,
Nice.
Very good, Papa Bear. We appreciate you. That was definitely a thing we should know, and yet another thing, as Nick put, that we can sort of file away in our knowledge canon, if you will.
That's
So,
right.
Okay.
And I really appreciate, PB, your background, because every
Yes.
time you lean forward, you got a little jump scare there because your face disappeared, and then the one behind you just came through. So it's
yes, for those just listening to this podcast, can you describe your background, Papa Bear, to the people?
Oh, well, it's little strips from film promos. Freddy Krueger looks like, and Jack
Is
Nicholson,
it Shining? Yeah,
The Shining. Who's the doll behind me? I
Annabelle.
don't know that.
Annabelle.
Yeah. And the other two,
I'm not sure.
I think the guy on the end is Night of the Living Dead. Is that the guy from?
Yeah.
Oh no, wait,
Oh no, that's
it's not the guy from Get Out, is it?
No. Well, I can't see it.
well, on the far left. Yeah.
that's going to be real good. Well,
It's-
we're both
it's really
like, just
tiny, like,
leaning
what?
in.
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Yeah.
Anyway, Papa Bear,
That's good.
great background, perfectly themed, and yeah, that is definitely a thing we should know. And that leaves you, Nick,
hold
to,
on.
to lay out.
Wait. PB's
Party
got
words.
something.
Wait. Oh crap!
Yep, PB.
Your Bride of
What
Frankenstein.
what
first
is
one.
it, PB?
The Bride of Frankenstein was 1935, the first one.
Okay,
There's been several others, shorts. That's it.
Nice.
that was actually very well. I apologize. That was
For your
we
outburst?
yes, we
That
did
was-
ask that, or
That
Nick
was not
asked.
called
You
for.
I don't know why
You
Nick
asked
asked.
about that.
Nick didn't even care. You see his face when you told him the fact. He didn't care. He's just saying stuff. He's just saying stuff.
I wanted to know. It's
All
very
right. So are you
important.
happy? Are you happy that
Thank
you know that?
I'm
now?
overjoyed. I'm over the moon.
Was it? Wait.
Thank you,
Say the
PB.
fact. Say the fact again, PB, real quick before you go.
The Bride of Frankenstein,
Yeah.
1935.
Okay. The Bride. For everybody, so they know, the Bride of Frankenstein premiered, came
The
out
first
in
one.
1935. The first one. Wow, we've been doing this movie thing for a long time. All right, PB, I appreciate you. Nick, can you drop us? You know,
Oh yeah. Well,
you know
just
what I
wanna-
need.
I know what you need, but I was just wondering if Josh and Aaron,
Aaron.
you know, yeah, right, Aaron, and you know you got who's over here, right? You got Chris Barkelly.
Mhm.
You know, you got to make sure you culture check.
Oh shit!
Hey, it's time. It's
Okay,
that time for
okay.
a culture check, guys. All right.
Check it.
I
All
just felt the earth rock and shake. The
Hey,
floor
I know
underneath
you-
me cracked open.
Yeah. You felt some things tingle.
did. This is gonna be a
understand.
pow-
That's how we
I
drop
did.
it.
This
That's
is-
how we drop it.
This is going to be a
This is
powerful
what we
culture
do.
check.
This is what we. All right. So this is
feel
this
it.
is
I
real.
can feel
This is
it.
real simple, and
Okay.
it really gets to the heart of what these guys do. So I'm gonna kind of put a question out there,
Mhm.
and then we can kind of answer, and then I'm gonna kind of expound a little bit. Right? What's more important? Making money so that you can, let's say, make another film or even be wealthy. Let's just say that. Maybe just say making money or authenticity. Okay, now here's the thing. Go, hit it.
I'd say definitely authenticity because, like, I don't want a lot of fame and fortune just because it sounds almost miserable to be famous, and money's nice, but like I still have a day job that I make enough money to just doing that and film is my second passion, I guess. I just like to make enough money to make another movie, and move on.
Well,
Josh is probably
Yeah, let's go.
come on now. This is
Come on.
He ain't lying. I mean, he's Aaron's frugal. I am not. Like, give me the money. But
that's why he's the producer.
But I will say, in regards to movies and making movies, like that question, authenticity, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that question I always ask in school, like, what do you believe in, fate or choice? Like destiny versus choice. Which one? You got to pick one. I was that kid going, no, it's not one or the other. Like, it's both. Your choices will make the destiny. Like, if you just don't do anything, nothing's ever going to happen. Like, it doesn't make sense. But, with making movies, if you, like I said before, like if you make a movie to make money and that's it, it's not going to work. Like, it might work as far as making money, but you're not going to be happy with it. I can understand the other side of the super producers and the studios of they're a business. They're not creatives. They're corporations. And me and Aaron both work in, corporate America. Well, I don't. I actually got laid off a few months ago, so I've got a little vacation all year.
Oh, damn.
But now
Sorry
I think,
to hear that.
well, it is what it is. But yeah, I think the way we make movies, it's not to make money. If that happens because of that, it will be very rewarding. But again, I don't think we would ever want the stress of that being the first thing you think of this has to be successful financially, not critically, not we're making this for a group of people that like it. We don't really care about everybody else. It's like, you don't need these kind of movies. Like, not everybody's going to love it. So if you're only making something for yourselves to be proud of and to be, make your friends happy and the community that you're a part of, that movies that you like, that's all you can really ask for. And now if the money comes, I mean, I definitely want to buy a few cars and new hats and sneakers, and
I just want to build a tiny house in the woods.
and here's Aaron.
He's
like,
got a whole list.
Just give me a nice tiny house in the woods, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, on top of a cave.
See, I told you we're different.
Yeah, but it's great. And the reason I asked the question is because, I mean, for several reasons. One, because your answers are awesome, and I think that's the culture.
The answers are
all
authentic.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the culture of independent film as well, right? I think that in everyone's heart of hearts, they want to make the money. But one of the things that I think of is horror films, the horror genre. And it is the most lucrative genre for independent film at the box office. And one of the things that Aaron said that struck me as well is there's this idea of making enough money to make your next movie. So as a filmmaker, what do you think about playing the long game, which is if you know that horror is the most lucrative at the box office, if you know that horror is the cheapest to make, if you know that community will literally watch everything and they will comment on everything and they will create virality from their comments, is horror the genre that all independent filmmakers should get into in order to build a career, build the financial part of it, make money off of these low budget films, and then become more authentic because now they've actually made money with, again, low budget, potentially low risk, in an environment, in a community that wants what they're creating. And then when you've done that enough, right? Because this, like you said earlier, both of you, I think, this isn't an overnight business anyway. So even if you're authentic to begin with, it might take you 10 years to make a hit, 20 years to make a hit. So what if you were to start out? What if all independent filmmakers were to start out in horror? Is that a good thing?
I think by definition, Aaron's probably going to say yeah, but I think by definition, when you talk about authenticity, that's not an authentic way to start a career, in my opinion.
Correct.
Like, I don't think that just because it's easier and more profitable, if it's someone that wants to make movies, and they know that there has to be a step they have to a couple of steps they got to take before they get to the point where they really get to do what they want to do. I mean, that's how it works, right? That's in most cases. Acting too, just with acting, and this is something like I mean, as far as like what I wanted to do my whole life, it's always been acting. It's acting before producing. Producing just kind of happened, right? But I always wanted to be an actor, but I've never pursued it as a full-time career. Like I've never looked at it as I'm going to move to LA and go do all that. And you hear all these stories of like actors saying, well, I had to do all these commercial auditions. I took every single job that I could because that's money. That's how they have to pay for stuff. I know actors now that take jobs just to pay rent. And it's not about it's a good project or it's creative or they even want to do it. It's their job. And I never wanted to look at it that way. And I think with filmmaking, it's even more important because it's so much more intense than just acting, because you're dealing, I mean, as an actor, you can go into a movie, work for a day, and that's it. You never have to worry about it. That director's living with that thing for a couple of years at least. So for someone to try to start to make movies in a way to be profitable, I think you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're not going to make a very authentic movie. If you have a really good team behind you, if you got a good writer, and it depends on what you want to do. If you would just want to be a director and someone hands you a script, and if you're a good director, you can go direct that movie. But if you're trying to make something that you hate, and you hear these horror stories all the time, people doing that, or you're just doing it like, what was that saying in the studio days? Like one for you, one for me, or two for you, one for me kind of thing. I just would never think that would work out. Maybe if someone's 18, 21, getting out of film school, but for us in our 40s now, and it's kind of stepping into this water, no.
Yeah, I agree. I think me personally, I will always make horror films. Might do a horror comedy or something, but it's always going to be a branch of horror because that's what I know and that's what I love. And I really want to make just Appalachian horror films because that's also what I really know. So I think when you're a filmmaker starting out, you want to make what you know because it's going to be more authentic. It's just going to make for a better film. And eventually, branch out because you might learn a lot of things along the way, and you might discover that you like making comedies, or you might like making dramas along the way, or you slowly mold into that. But I think the authenticity is important. And a good example of that from the flip flop of horror is Jordan Peele, who made some of the funniest, just the funniest guy, and then he started making horror movies, and people are like, "What?" And he's made some of the greatest horror films of the last 10, 15 years, I guess. Like he just, because he knew comedy, and he knew that horror was a path from comedy. Like he said once, like making people laugh is just a visceral reaction as it is making people scream. You're eliciting an uncontrollable thing from people, and he knew both of those very well, and he was able to do it. But if he just started out like making dramas or something like that, or romantic comedies, it wouldn't have been authentic. It probably would have been really weird, but
still would have been good.
The Jordan Peele thing is a really interesting point too, because I remember when Get Out was being released and being marketed, they were almost apologizing for the fact that he was the director writer. And it just goes to show that executives really are paranoid and they have no idea what's going on the ground in the real world. Because if they did, they would know that the number one intrigue to go watch the movie was the fact that Jordan Peele was the writer-director. So all the filmmaking folks and the film lovers and the cinephiles and the horror lovers on the ground were like, this is different. Okay, I'm here for it. Let's go see if it's good. The studio executives thought, oh, this is going to run people away. They're going to shy away from this film because of that. And so they were completely out of touch. And that's why they got blindsided by its success.
But yet
they had no idea.
You see what happened after that. Those same people were like, we helped do that. We want to be
Yeah,
in
of
your
course.
next one.
Yeah, they jump on
Here's
that
all
wagon
this
quick.
money. I'm so happy that we were here to help you. I think
Yeah.
so.
Right.
One of the things that really drives me crazy is hearing these stories, and I love watching like movies that portray studio executives as crazy people, because most of them are. I think there's a big link of, I worked in the corporate world for 18 years, and we'll probably go back to that very soon. But there's some similarities there, especially now you're seeing with streaming services, that people got to understand streaming services are IT corporations. Like, when you talk about Netflix was never, they didn't start to make their own movies. They were just like, they thought there was a gap in the market of people getting movies through the mail. That worked. And then there's streaming. But that's always, they approach this as a corporation, as an IT company. Studios have always looked at, it's money. You rarely see an executive that gets put into power to make art. Otherwise, they wouldn't be an executive. Sometimes there's that crossover where you see that, but I think more and more, my prediction in the coming future is, I think people really want less of that. They want to call people out for making those kind of comments and decisions of not marketing a movie the way that the director, the writer, the people that made the movie want it to be marketed, because they know what they want people to see. They know what the audience, because they're an audience member. They know that. Studio executives are so out of touch when it comes to knowing, the pulse of the thing. They look at it, especially a first-time filmmaker. Jordan Peele's that perfect example of, they didn't know how to market it. And they didn't want to go like, hey, here's Peele from Key and Peele has made this movie. I don't know if it'll work. If it doesn't, we kind of told you so, but hey, it works, so we're going to take all the credit. So that's the first time filmmaker stuff. It's all based on, they don't have a script. They don't have a playbook they can pull from of, this person has made money for them already, and they're going to keep doing it. And then M. Night Shyamalan's another example of, first one out of the park, knocked it out of the park with 6 Sense, and then Unbreakable comes out. And I saw, he was on someone's podcast, and he was just talking about this exact same thing about marketing, and how when Unbreakable come out, no one knew how to market it because it's a comic book movie. This is, before Marvel and all of that. And they didn't, when they're putting the trailers out there, like, they wanted to make it look like 6 Sense, because that's the formula that worked. And when people saw Unbreakable, I was one of those people that I didn't like Unbreakable in the theater because I thought I was getting another 6 Sense. Wasn't my fault, because that's what they told me.
That's exactly what a lot of people thought. That's why it ends up being, it's a cult. That's another cult movie right there.
Right.
Yeah, because you have to go back and watch it without the expectation that was
exactly. Yeah.
The
And I went
6
back
Sense
and,
set up
and
for it,
watched
yeah,
it,
exactly.
and it was a lot better, especially with,
I love that
the
movie.
two that came after that, where I mean, I admire M. Night Shyamalan. I love. There's some stuff. After Earth is one of the only movies I've walked out of the theater of, and I didn't even know that was him.
I didn't know he did that either.
Yeah, it's not good. Just don't put Will and Jake in the same movie. And After Earth, I don't know. They just anyway. M. Night Shyamalan lost so much money on, or lost the studio support after a couple of flops, that no one was giving him money. No one was getting behind him. And when he made The Visit, I don't know if you guys seen that, that was kind of his way back into a new group of audience members that wasn't there before. He mortgaged his house. Like this guy had made several movies that were profitable, but no one was giving him money. So he had to mortgage his house to make that movie. And he did. And it was profitable. And then he's back in it again. It's just like this vicious circle that's run by.
And then they use his name, right?
And then they used his name. Of course, they're going to use his name to market it. So there's a catch-22 there. You need them in some instances for what we've done and what we probably will continue to do. I don't see that as a necessity, but personally, me from a producer standpoint, and being involved with the corporate world for so long, that's something I would like to take on a challenge of. And to be part of the studio system in a way that if I felt like I could change things, change that perspective. Don't know if that'll ever happen, but if I ever get the opportunity, I'd happily take it.
There's two awesome firms that do it really well. A24, they really know how to market Neon knows how to market really, really well and do it from an artistic standpoint. Their executives are, they take care of the funds, obviously, but they also, in the budgets, but they also have, this creative tick that allows them to understand what really works. And then the company
And
Maximum,
Blumhouse.
Blumhouse would be one, maybe the OG of this, and then Maximum Effort. So shout out to Maximum Effort. They just get it. They know how to market films. They know how to get your film to pop off. They know how to take out the best elements of your film and make sure everybody sees it. The whole thing about your culture check, Nick, the way you presented it was interesting. But before we wrap it up, it's like you came at it with like, well, would you rather be authentic and not make as much money, or be inauthentic in a way and then make a lot of money? And the way I thought about it, and after this conversation now, and the way I'm looking at it is, you could have an answer that fits this conversation, but the answer would change when you try to do it in real life, to Josh's point. And here's what I mean. And I think maybe it was Aaron's point, actually, and then Josh expounded upon it. But when you go to make a movie just for the money, it won't work, because you don't know anything. You're not writing what you know. You're not writing what you're good at. So if you went out to just make a horror because horror is what works, your horror is not going to work. And it's one of my biggest pet peeves of found footage. I think earlier in the conversation was mentioned that there are 10,000 found footage films since Blair Witch. Why? Because they're all trying to cash Blair Witch's lottery.
Copycat.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're terrible. Sometimes dog shit movies, because, and look, we talked about this earlier. If you finished your movie, awesome, because that is so hard. My caveat to that is, if you went into it to ape somebody else, to literally rip off someone else's everything in hopes that the audience would be duped into making you a wealthy person, I don't like that.
Yeah. There's
That's
a lot
my
of that
exception
found
to the
footage.
rule. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And Chess doesn't do that. Jeffrey's Hell doesn't do that. But we know there's a bunch of Blair Witch style movies out there where it's literally like beat for beat. It's kids in the woods. It's everything. And it's like, you insult me. You insult me with this. So
if
to
you
me,
don't do the snot coming out of the nose,
yeah,
then it's not Blair Witch. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and there's all these other movies that try to do that. There's these Paranormal Activity copycats. There's these Napoleon Dynamite copycats. There's all these things, all these films that come out that literally are taking what you're saying in this culture check, which is, okay, let's just do the thing that's the easiest pathway to money. And I've been an artist my entire life, and the only way I've seen people be really successful is by being so in tune with themselves that they make something at the height of their talent. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and that's true with all
because
art.
there is a copycat. Yeah, well, I was going to say real quick, there is a copycat, Chris, that did a really good job, and like, I think he's done very well for himself. I'll be sure, because when he copycatted you, he was on point. He did a good job. That's all I gotta say. So
shout out to I'll be sure. Shout out to
Yeah,
I'll be sure.
yeah.
Taught Devontae Swing how to produce music.
These are deep cuts.
There you go.
Deep cuts.
Yeah, they are deep.
Yeah.
Natalie. I used to jam to that track, and I go back and listen to it now. I'm like, man, that song is kind of empty. Like, where's all the? It's one of those songs that doesn't really hold up over time for some reason. But when it came out, it was like, oh, Natalie, oh shit. And there was like, there were girls moaning for the first time. There's all that stuff. Yeah, Ron, we got to jump back in. You were about to say something. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Wait, what was I saying?
Found footage.
No idea.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It wasn't important.
We were talking about copycats. And I stepped on.
Oh, I was saying that like not just film, it's all forms of art. Like you have to be authentic. And there's probably examples of people that are not authentic with their art, but you don't know their names because they don't make it. And
And I think now, audiences have become a lot more intelligent than they used to be, just because of access of things.
Yeah.
So just think about, if Elvis Presley came out today and there wasn't anything like him before, so they thought, but he came out today, it would be very apparent, like, yeah, he's getting his musical style from other people, has been influenced by other people heavily. Now you do something like, you make a movie, you write a song, you do something that if you're ripping someone off, you're going to get called out almost immediately. That's the one thing I'll say is positive about, social media and things, is people can no longer think they can get away with that, of appropriating or stealing from another artist just for their own financial gain, because they have a better end than that person. There's especially with movies, there's diehard fans, especially in the horror genre, that will, if you're trying to just cash in on something, it's not going to work. It's just not. It may on the surface think like, hey, have you seen this movie? And you're like, yeah, that's just a ripoff of this movie. It happens all the time. People are like, oh, okay, well, now I don't like it.
Yeah, it happened earlier this year with the film that used like just a little piece of AI in it, and all the horror fans were like, they felt betrayed. They're like, dude, we're not going to support this movie. We're not going to watch
Late Night with the Devil.
Late Night with the Devil. Yeah,
I didn't agree with that backlash, but
I didn't either. But
it's just
this is how sensitive people are, to Josh's point.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the bad.
Go watch that movie, folks.
Everybody's so sensitive. Yeah, that movie is great.
Great movie.
Yeah, just go watch it. Like, it has a little piece where this is the world we're in. It's not going anywhere. Like this is ridiculous. But in terms of people ripping people off, I mean, you can't even steal a lyric. I mean, I thought we talked about this in the last podcast, Nick. I thought what lost Drake that beef with Kendrick was that he used Tupac's did an AI Tupac, and people were just like it was like distaste. It was like, we don't like that.
Also,
can't get away with it anymore.
Also, because Kendrick Lamar did one song that was better than his entire album, and I have to say this only because
I said that last week. I said that one song was it. Yeah.
My girlfriend is so obsessed with that Kendrick Lamar song. Like, it's been I've got a video of her rapping the entire thing. Like, and this is like the second day.
Share.
Put that on the end of this podcast.
Yeah, she's gonna love
no
that.
context.
Yeah,
she got really into I didn't know what was going on. She got really into the beef, and she's like, "Did you understand? Like, do you know what the owl is? And he's only doing 18 push-ups in the video. You know why? And, I mean, it's deep. So I'm just getting educated.
Know all that.
Yeah."
Yeah, that's going Zapruder film on the beef. So I mean, Nick, I think that the point I'm making is you can say yes to your question, to your culture check, and then when you go to do it in real life, the answer is going to be no. And that's the interesting thing about the culture check. Anyway, gentlemen, this has been fantastic, amazing. Nick, thank you for the culture check. Why don't we end how we always end, by asking our guests, our luminaries here, what does it mean to you to make it?
Making it is being happy with the things that I'm making, and moving on from those things to make more things, and just a steady progression of making things that make me happy and not looking back, learning from mistakes, and just being better at whatever I'm trying to do, basically.
Dope.
Love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think making it is all of that too. And, I think the older we get, we think about things in our past that we look at as we didn't make it, whatever it may be. We didn't make the best out of that situation. We didn't make the best out of that job. We didn't make the best out of this opportunity. We did something that we regret but at the end of the day, and this is something, the last few years, especially just personally, that I've tried to deal with is, life is short. And I think we're constantly making it by literally making the next step of our lives happen by those past experiences. So of course, there's things that people regret, that wish we would have done more of, started things earlier, whatever it may be. But if you're happy where you are today, you would not be there unless you have made that happen by those mistakes, by those, forks in the road that you went the other way. You wouldn't be here. Like, I feel like as a filmmaker, as an actor, if I tried to do this at 18, 25, even 30 years old, it would not be the same as it is today for me. And I would not be looking at it as I'm doing what I love with my friend, with people that I trust. I have no other objective other than making things in that authentic way that will give us that next step to continue to make it.
Yeah, that's dope. And
that's wonderful.
Nick, the thing I love about this question is you always have a chance to make it. So it's okay. To Josh's point, you got regrets, you got missteps, things that didn't go your way. And it could be filmmaking, but it could be any part of your life. Okay. You made a mistake. You still have a chance to correct it. You have a chance to learn from it. You have a chance to do better the next time. And then that is making it. So I love asking this question. I love the responses we get. Gentlemen, where can we find you and the audience, find you guys on social media, on the internet? Where can we watch Jeffrey's Hell? Where can we watch Chest? Give us the deets, as the kids say.
For Chest and Jeffrey's Hell, pretty much all the information you need is on ifkyfilms.com. That has like all the socials, we'll have all the updates and news. Jeffrey's Hell's still doing the festival circuit right now. But the plan to release that before the end of the year.
Sweet.
And all that will be online. But yeah.
Yeah, and you can Chess is streaming currently on several platforms, but go check it out on Tubi if you like what Tubi does. Tubi does a lot for independent filmmakers. It's also, you can find it there on YouTube. There's Stash, Chills and Thrills, and several other outlets there. Also, I'm kind of tied to a project that I'm an executive producer on, and I actually have a small role in. It's this movie called Hey, I Made This For You. It's written by Ted Welch, who also stars in it. If you're a Nashville actor, you know who Ted is. It's a very different movie than the horror movies that we're talking about. I don't even want to call it a romantic comedy, but it's one of the most nostalgic pieces of filmmaking. And Chris, I know you were there when we did a little screener for it, but that's going through some festival circuits now, and hopefully that gets some legs in a totally different audience. But that's out there. But Aaron and I are we're working on other stuff, coming up, and Aaron's been talking about this, kind of the next step in this Appalachian horror stuff that we've been talking about for a while, that he's been writing on, and I'm starting to write on, and I think we got a short film maybe coming up too that we want to try out, and so things are happening, and it's things also getting that
cooking
time of year in the fall here in Tennessee where things look a little more creepy outside, so we'll capitalize on that.
Yeah, well, let me know when you decide to shoot that short film called The Last Black Man in Appalachia.
Dude, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
That's really not a bad idea.
See?
Not sure if we're the right people to do that, but it's...
I think he can make it happen.
Yeah.
I think he can
well,
make it happen.
Well done, Nicholas Buggs. Well done. Guys, this is incredible. You heard it from the horse's mouth. For those listening and watching, do go support these guys. Watch it on Tubi if you like to watch Chest on Tubi. If you like to see independent filmmakers succeed and get paid. Shout out to Tubi for supporting independent films the way they do. By the way, is there individual social media handles you guys can provide if they want to reach out to you directly for advice or anything like that?
Mine is Freon Irons 409.
Okay. On all socials? Or?
On Instagram. I don't.
Okay,
really,
got it.
I think I'm on Threads too, but I don't use that often. Facebook is just basically a aggregator of my Instagram, so Instagram's the best place.
Yeah, as far as the movie stuff goes, we do everything through the the film pages, and I'm not very active on social medias, but as far as Instagram goes, that's probably the closest thing I have linked to filmmaking stuff, and it's J Crow, the one you know.
One of my favorite handles.
It's all dots in between, right?
Yeah, there's dots. It's J Crow
J
dot the
CRO.
dots. Yeah,
A lot of dots.
yeah. If you can find it,
we might have to have editor Kate throw that up here at the end so that people can actually visually see that. But J Crow, the one you know, on Instagram. And say yours again, Aaron. Freon
Irons 409.
Freon Irons 409. Perfect. Gentlemen, this has been a blast. For those out there that are looking to discover more about what we are up to at the Make It Podcast, you can find everything and more at themakeitpodcast.com. We also have incredible gear at Cotton Bureau. So go to cottonbureau.com and search for the Make It Podcast. We have an incredible store there. Plush t-shirts, long sleeve and short sleeve, incredible hoodies and hats. So definitely go check that out. It has our custom logos on there, and there'll be more to come in that regard. If you go to our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, Indie Insights. It comes out every 2 Fridays, and that is really easy. You just go to bonsai.film/subscribe and put in your email address. It's completely free, and you will get the very next newsletter then and there. Pretty awesome stuff indeed. If you want to reach out to Nick and ask him any questions about what's under the bill of his hat, you can email him at nick@bonsai.film. And if you want to reach out to me, I am on X. You can just search for Chris Barkley and I will come right up. X, formerly Twitter, of course. And if Chris Barkley doesn't work for some reason, which it will, you can also find me at my handle, Flame in Your Heart. And your is spelled UR. So Flame in UR Heart. And with that, Nick, can you please leave us with the credo?
Of course. And thank you again to everyone on this podcast tonight. Gentlemen, we appreciate you. We appreciate PB. We appreciate intern Sam for doing what they do. And with that, I will say to our friends, our family, our fans, our fellow filmmakers out there, be better, be creative, be engaged.
And thank you for listening. Nick, Aaron, Josh, talk to you guys soon.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, guys.
thanks, guys.
Appreciate
All right.
you.
Peace. Love you, PB.
Later.
Bye, Sam. Peace.